You're watching the Blockchain Interviews, hosted by Dan Weiskopf. Each episode features interviews with leading industry experts so that viewers can have a deeper understanding of today's quickly evolving blockchain marketplace.
Mike Novogratz from Galaxy Digital. Thrilled to have you here in the Blockchain CEO series. We've been longtime fans, also longtime investors, and watched your company grow and expand and innovate. And thanks for the time. Thrilled to catch up with you on this day, June 15th, with the Fed action just like 1 hour ago. So the timing's pretty good. So just from a top-down perspective, without getting into too much detail, talk to us a little bit about what you heard and the macro environment, with the Fed action.
Powell's a pretty straight shooter. Inflation is running hotter than they want. The last CPI number scared them a little bit. More than the CPI number, it's the inflation expectations. The University of Michigan survey getting a little unhinged. They're not unhinged yet, but central banks care more about inflation expectations. And what that means is if you start to expect inflation, you're negotiating with your boss for, I can't work because food's going to be higher, gas is going to be higher, everything's going to be higher. And that inflation spiral is really, really the biggest fear central banks have. And so they raised 75. He said, that's not a sure thing for next meeting. We'll look at the data. It'll be 50 or 75. And that was a little more dovish than people thought he'd be. A lot of people thought he'd go 75, he'd go 75 twice. So he stayed consistent in that there's going to be flexibility around the data. Listen, everything we see is the economy is rolling over, and it's rolling over faster than we've seen in a long time. And so you're going to be faced with this stagflation issue where he's going to see the economy rolling and people are going to start losing their jobs. You're seeing it already. Housing market's starting to head down. That's been a big strength. Inventories are exploded, right? Orders have stopped. But inflation's hard to beat. And we know food's going to be sticky. We know energy's going to be sticky. And so I think they're in a tough spot. My guess is they raise again, either 50 or 75. And after that, you'll start seeing enough weak economic data that they'll taper these. If that's the case, you're going to see the moment the market smells the Fed's going to flinch, you're going to see Bitcoin take back off. You're going to see assets take back off.
Yeah, along those same lines, we have to admit that we're, at least from my vantage point, I'm a little bit disappointed with how Bitcoin has held up, or not really has held up, with inflation, right?
Well, remember, so Bitcoin went up because people feared inflation, and they feared the central bank was going to print money forever. And then Powell showed up in December with a whole new suit of armor on and said, I'm going to be the reincarnation of Paul Volcker, and I'm going to take my stick and bash inflation over the head. And he's been very hawkish since. And so the market's saying, wow, maybe we won't have as much inflation. Maybe this guy will take it seriously. And so when people think about inflation hedge, it's a little bit of a misnomer. It was an amazing asset to own when people feared inflation. But when the central banker said he was going to kill inflation and people started believing him, all assets, growth equities, baseball cards, fine wines, Richard Mille watches, Bitcoin, Ethereum, NFTs all got clobbered. And I think that made sense to me. Listen, the extent of the sell-off has been more dramatic than anyone would have hoped. I think even in the last 3 weeks with both Celsius, or the last week with both Celsius and now Three Arrows, two of the bigger crypto players, that ran very large leverage books and very complicated books, with those guys appearingly to be stopped out and maybe insolvent or very unsolvent, less solvent, I don't know what we would call it. That really has spooked the crypto markets, and you've seen a lot of leverage everyone's pulling back leverage goes away from a market, prices come down. And so I would like to hope that we hit 1,000 today in Ethereum and we hit 20,000 in Bitcoin, that could be the bottom. I don't say that with a ton of confidence. If it was just the macro environment, I would have thought maybe, but we've got this unique deleveraging in crypto. I think most of the leverage has been unwound. Like there's been a tremendous amount of pain out there, but I'm not positive, right? We've seen unwinding from miners on our side, from lots of players, but we'll see. I don't think if we go below that, we stay there that long. But the market's definitely been damaged.
In that context, how do you track the leverage in the system? Because isn't that part of the question? That it is essentially opaque and built off of derivatives.
Yes, no, because you look at total value locked in DeFi. That's just leverage, right? DeFi is a bank, and so that's one. You look at the balance sheets of these big, it was Celsius, BlockFi, Genesis to a degree, Voyager, the one up in Canada. That's leverage, right? That's people lending their money to try to it's like putting it into the bank of crypto. All that stuff gets recycled. You look at leverage on the exchanges, and so you can kind of add it all and get a kind of a leverage index. You look at what people are paying in premium on the perpetual swaps. Are they trading at a premium or a discount?
Sure.
And so Bitcoin, the short Bitcoin yesterday was trading at minus 30%. And so you figured out people have gotten short because there's a lot of illiquid stuff out there, right? You've got, hey, I put my money in venture investment ABC and it's worth X. The only way to hedge it is something liquid. That's a very dangerous game, but under duress, people hedge illiquid stuff with liquid stuff.
Yeah, sure. So along those same lines, and we're big believers in culture, at our firm, and you've built a unique culture at your firm. You're now, I think, 400 people, and what are you doing to foster that culture and keep all your people happy in these tough times, while also getting them to work together? Because we need inspiration, Mike, come on.
It's a great question. Listen, I mean, some of it's just being an honest shooter. Like, it's a lot more fun in a bull market than it is a bear market.
Yes.
People are going to have to work harder for less pay. But great businesses get built in bear markets. Listen, we will make hard decisions like our competitors will on, what businesses to focus on and what businesses to put less focus on. I'm sure there will be, I think I've already counted 1,500 people laid off in the industry just from announcements. There'll be a lot more layoffs. I think a lot of hedge funds will get closed down. All that said it's the natural cycle of a new industry. It is painful. And so I think being honest with your employees, try to have a long-term vision. Where's the ball going to be in 2 years, not where it's going to be in 2 months, or the proverbial hockey puck if you're Canadian. I think that's it. Listen, you got to make it fun to come to work. I told our HR people that in some ways, we do a lot of stuff like we'll have Asian American Month. We brought in David Chang, or we're bringing in Anthony Romero, who heads the ACLU for Pride Month. So great speakers and whatnot. I was like, in some ways, that's more important in downtimes than uptimes.
Yep.
Like that helps create connectivity to the firm, creates culture. But it's a tough business right now.
It's definitely tough. And you came public in 2018 through a reverse merger. Given
we came public at a Canadian value of 5, and today it's 6. And so that's a whole lot of stinking work to have increased $1. Our book is 4 times the size. Well, I'm going to give you, roughly.
Yeah.
Our firm is bigger. The talent we have is immensely more capable. And so, listen, markets, they took us up. They took us all the way to 1, up to 40, down, up. And so, listen, all I can do is focus on building a great business.
I wasn't even going there, by the way. Just to be clear, it was more about why you came public than
Yeah, listen, I went public originally because I thought permanent capital would be important in this space. The Canadian market, which has turned out to be an ish market. When I say ish market, it got us public, and that was great.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the liquidity of the NASDAQ. And so while I originally thought, just like in the weed stocks, hey, this will be great, we'll build a big business. I thought it would be easier to transfer to the NASDAQ than it was, and that we'd be able to tap the capital markets. Like, we went public right into the first crypto winter, or the 2018 crypto winter. And so we really didn't get a chance to use the Canadian capital markets the way I thought we would. Listen, being a public stock is great when you trade at a premium, and it is really crappy when you trade at book or below book, because you don't want to use your stock for something when it's trading below book. When it's trading at 3 times book, it's a pretty great acquisitive currency. And so, our job is to tell the story, build good businesses, and have it trade back up. We still plan on listing on the NASDAQ. That's been a slow process. I shouldn't say not our fault. It's everyone's. We're engaged with the SEC on a regular basis. They have been very slow and very methodical and very thorough, not just with us, but with Circle, with Bullish, with eToro, with anybody who's got crypto on their balance sheet. And so that's been frustrating. But I learned a long time ago. I was in India, and these great monks said, dude, just deal with your reality. Not why it's here, not it's fake. It's just your reality. And so I try to just deal with my reality.
That's all you can do, I think you've got enough smarts to know that you can't rush the SEC. They're going to do what they do. Unlike other CEOs who who get angry on Twitter and quite honestly seem kind of silly. But we won't talk about that. Now, is there a way you can talk a little bit about the Bitco deal, and how you see synergies across your many different sectors with that enterprise, knowing that, quite honestly, some of the hedge funds that are involved may not be there?
Yeah, listen, I think having kind of the soup to nuts, full stack opportunity in the long run will be worth something. Having a technology platform, Bitco is one of the largest wallet providers, will be worth something. Mm-hmm. There's no reason for both them to have a prime enough to have us to have a prime, them to have a trading desk enough, so there's synergies amongst customers. I don't think custody is going away, quite frankly. I think it's going to get more important when you see things like what happened at Celsius, where people, should have known better, but they thought, hey, I'm depositing my coins. They were taking credit risk, as opposed to where you're putting them in Bitco. They're your coins held safely off chain, in cold storage. So they really are your coins. And I think people are going to kind of wake up to that.
Part of the reason why I'm asking that question is also to lead into how you've seen examples where your different divisions have worked together to add value at the firm level, and that ends up being a competitive advantage on a long-term basis.
Yeah, listen, our mining team has been wildly helpful to our credit business, right? Like, Amanda knows everyone in mining. Mining credit is a great business. Mining banking, right? Our banking team has done some mining deals. And so the idea of having domain expertise across the space, our venture team brings in all kinds of ideas, some for the banking team, some for the trading team, right? Our trading business will deal with protocols. And so I think in general, that's a big positive.
And banking too, right? Investment banking, it all cycles through together, and whether we realize it or not, we're in an information business, right?
That's it.
But on the same token, there are concerns around venture capital, in terms of access to capital, so that DeFi can continue to grow, right?
Listen,
Where do you see venture capital in the space right now?
There's like $15 billion of dry powder on the sidelines. And so I think venture should sit on their hands for a while and let things settle down. But I think there'll be smaller seed rounds, but there'll be plenty of them. And when people have money in their pocket, it usually burns a hole. And so I think you'll see that venture money deployed probably sooner than it should be. People raised a lot of money. Pantera raised around, A16 raised around, Katie Hahn just raised a big fund. And so there's a lot of, we're raising one right now in our interactive fund, a lot of dry powder.
When I go back to a period of time during the .com era, I remember that a lot of folks had business plans and were able to raise money easily just off of a business concept. But what didn't exist that I think does exist today is that it wasn't a mission. I mean, this seems to be, quite honestly, more of a revolution than what happened back then. And the comparison is more about change than anything else to me. Where today, I know a lot of young people are literally, sleeping on people's couches so they can keep going on a protocol so that they don't have to raise capital like they might otherwise. Do you agree? I mean, do I have it right that the actual TradFi isn't as important as it was when .com or the internet was being built?
Yeah, in lots of ways. I mean, listen, the idea that crypto's a revolution is really important. And that's why I think young people aren't going to get phased by price action that they've seen. They're going to continue to come in and say, this is where we're going to build this. This is going to be a tougher, pill to swallow, because the market cap, like the first time we crashed, it was $1 billion to basically 100 million. This was 3.5 billion down to 800, right? And so it was just the law of much bigger numbers, many more people. And so it's going to take a little bit more time to put Humpty Dumpty together again. But the technology is not going anywhere, and people believe in it, right? Web3 is going to be a revolutionary thing in time. I think important on the next part of the cycle will be to see utility, to see people build things that are really used and are used at scale. The user interface, the user experience has not been great. And so mostly, even in the NFT space, which I think will be the leader, a lot of that was, speculation, almost gambling on NFTs. And I think you're going to see NFTs as digital collectibles, i.e. consumer products. You're going to still see investments. You're going to see better art. It was we're only less than a year into that space. And so, yeah, we had a bubble that crashed. I don't think the next iteration will look identical to the last one.
So do you think, though, that people will give Bitcoin the credit as the original DeFi that it arguably deserves?
Yeah, I think Bitcoin's got the brand, and people say, what's the use case of Bitcoin? I was like, or the killer app of crypto, or it was Bitcoin. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. It is this digital store of value that is a finished product. Everything else is a work in progress, right? Ethereum doesn't work well yet. The merge is going to happen. It's going to scale. Projects will be built on it. Polygon is going to be built. They're going to try to be their own blockchain, but they'll certainly also work alongside and on top of Ethereum. Starkware just raised a big round. That whole space is going to evolve, and it's going to evolve to be able to store data, to process data, to literally be a global supercomputer that's shared and decentralized.
Yeah. By the way, I had fortunate experience to spend some time with Amanda earlier today, and she's exactly what I had heard she would be. She's inspirational. She's visionary, and I enjoyed having a conversation with her. And maybe the answer to the question about why you got back into the mining business is a function simply about her.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, right? She is well respected, ran Fidelity's mining, and because that was Fidelity, she knew everybody. She's a Bitcoin maximalist at her core. It's good to have a few of those around the firm. It keeps us to our roots. And she literally loves mining, and I love people. I love people who love what they do. I think that's an important thing, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah. So going forward, we'll say 5-10 years from now, what do you think people are going to look backwards at and say, well, man, it was just so obvious. Why didn't I think about that paradigm shift that was going to affect, these industries?
In some ways, people say, oh my God, Goldman's missing it, Morgan Stanley's missing it. They have huge, diverse businesses that are making fortunes. Crypto isn't big enough yet that it's a threat to TradeFi. We like to say in the crypto space, but it hasn't been. And so I think when crypto comes of age, you're going to see big banks, once they get the regulatory approval, get engaged by crypto companies, build. And so I think it's a little bit, a false narrative, like there's this grand battle going on. I mean, if there was a battle, it would be an elephant and a bee. We're a young, new industry iterating through, I think, revolutionary technology. We are going to try to disrupt not just finance, but big tech, social media, media companies, not just social media companies, entertainment companies, advertising, collectibles. And so really a broad revolution in this idea of cutting out the middleman. It's just not ready to have taken anyone down yet, right? It'll take down payment, remittance payments, right? Western Union will get beaten up. It'll slowly pick some fights and win. And then all of a sudden you'll see it hit critical mass and you'll be like, wait, blockchain's everywhere. And you won't even notice it because it'll be behind the TV.
Yeah, you said blockchain, and I actually obviously define it mostly as blockchain, but there's also, Web 3.0 and metaverse and NFT. I wish we'd find some consistent definitions, but that's part of the evolution, right? So I guess my other question is, if you had to nail it down, which industry will be the most affected beyond finance?
Media, gaming, media. They have these huge communities that are already connected, right? So if you think of like Decentraland, right? Or Sandbox, they had a couple 100,000 users. iHeartRadio, one of my guys is on the board. They got 110 million users. And so you've got to think they're going to connect their radio base into their own metaverse and have concerts where people can come into, avatar form and buy and sell digital goods. And like, that's where I see the world going. I think there's going to be this collaboration between big companies with huge communities that already exist. Some of these games have millions of players. So they have these huge communities already. And so to be able to sell them unique digital goods or connect them in unique metaverse experiences, I think is going to be a kind of a big accelerator of the next part of, what happens on blockchains. And that won't be,
impeded by regulation, because
that's right now it doesn't look like it. And it's also not impeded by incumbents saying, oh God, you're going to ruin my business, so I'm going to do everything I can to throw sand in the works, right? That's a tailwind. Like you think about Candy, who does Major League Baseball memorabilia, or NBA Top Shot, with Dapper. NBA Top Shot did, I think, $125 million revenue for the NBA this year. Like, what do they say? Thank you very much. More next year, please. Not, oh my God, you're ruining my business, right? And so you don't have the lobbying against you that you'll find in DeFi, in the financial.
Yeah. I've been long a proponent that healthcare would be affected in a positive way, by greater use on the blockchain, where insurance companies would work together with healthcare companies. That's going to take far more time, right? That might be a 5-year or 10-year outlook on something, but I definitely see where you're coming from in regards to the gaming side of things. So Mike, I mean, this has been great. Appreciate the time.
Awesome.
We'll stay in touch and look forward to seeing, your company grow and continue to block and tackle.
Thanks
Be
so
well.
much, David. Be well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.